Hello everybody. Today I'm going to talk about 4 practices that I believe hold people back from making significant progress in their English. And I'm going to start with the least important one and move to the most important. 4 things that I've observed that you need to remove and replace with better habits. Welcome everybody. Today we're going to talk about 4 practices to avoid if you want to improve your English quickly. So let's just go right into it and talk about what they are, and then I'm going to talk about it. Number 1, stop memorizing words. Number 2, stop being a one-dimensional learner. Number 3, stop delaying opportunities. And number 4, stop studying when you have time. So I'm going to talk about each of these, and I think they're going to be very helpful. I'm going to challenge you, and I'm nearly certain that everyone listening will be challenged in at least one area where you can benefit and progress much faster if you change a few of these habits. So let's begin with number 1. Don't memorize lists of words or synonyms. This is very common. You see it on Instagram or YouTube where English teachers or people are giving you lists of words. This is misleading and in fact can be very counterproductive. Counterproductive means that instead of making progress, you actually regress because you're confused. So let's talk about the 2 reasons why you don't want to simply memorize words. Because words have positive and negative associations. So if you Google a word and you put synonym next to it, you're going to have a list. You will have a list of synonyms, but you can't use these interchangeably all the time. Some of them have positive connotations, some of them have negative associations. Let me give you an example. So if I want to use a different word for detailed, he is a detailed person. If I do a Google list, a search for synonyms, I could come up with these 5 here: thorough, meticulous, precise, pedantic, and a perfectionist. Now, what you need to know is that not all of these are positive. Some of them are negative. You can see pedantic and at times perfectionist can be negative. So I can't just use a word because it's a synonym. I can't just use it. So if he's a detailed person, that's neutral to positive. So if I try to expand my vocabulary by using a synonym, just blindly, without knowing more about it, and I say he is a pedantic person, this is very negative. You're being very critical. On the other side, you have very positive terms, which is more positive than detailed. You might not want to be that positive. He's meticulous. He goes through everything thoroughly. So the reason you can't just memorize synonym lists is because it doesn't take into account the tone or the positive, negative associations of those words. But there's a second reason why you cannot just memorize words, because it will not help you in speech or in writing. It might help you with reading a little bit, but not with active communication. And here's the reason, the second reason why. Words have natural uses and collocations. So if you Google, if you look up synonyms for difficult, you'll find these 3 in that list: demanding, burdensome, backbreaking. Now let's take a look. So you might be inclined, if you only memorize words, you'll be inclined just to switch them back and forth. You can't do that. Words have specific associations and collocations and contexts, which means that you have to be sensitive to this. Watch this. Let's go to the next slide, and I will show you what I mean. So, if I want to replace difficult, the exam was difficult. So let's say I want to use a better word. So I Google synonyms of difficult. I come up with backbreaking. The exam was backbreaking. Now it's a synonym of difficult, but that you cannot say that. The exam was backbreaking unless it was a physical exam. The exam was burdensome. Possibly, but not really. Tasks can be burdensome. The exam is generally not understood as burdensome. The exam was demanding. It can be demanding. So of the three words, there's really only one sort of demanding. Honestly, hard would be better. The exam was hard or difficult. Demanding is possible. The other two, not really. So if you only memorize words or synonyms, you end up using words improperly. You have to understand the context and the collocation in which they are normally used. And so if you see lists to memorize on Instagram or YouTube, be very wary. Wary is W-A-R-Y. Wary means skeptical. Be very skeptical because it's not going to help you in many cases. Some cases it will, but in most, probably not. So let's take a look at natural context for these three. Cutting the tree down was back-breaking. It was literally difficult. It hurt my back. It was physically difficult. So this is difficult in a physical sense. Burdensome has a variety of meanings, but you could use it in this way, in a way that you couldn't use difficult or back-breaking. The tax rate was burdensome, a burden, burdensome on business. You could not say the tax rate was difficult or the tax rate was back-breaking. And so here, burdensome alone is the one difficult word we can use, difficult synonym. So we have to be very careful. I mean, there are other synonyms of burdensome, but we can't use these that are listed. And demanding, oftentimes people are demanding. Your boss is demanding. The teacher is demanding, or the professor is demanding. I have a demanding boss. Now, you can say a difficult boss, but that could mean personality. He's difficult with his personality, or he's difficult in a demanding sense. He gives us a lot of work. So if you're trying to expand your vocabulary, memorizing lists of words or synonyms is not the way to do it. You risk using words out of context, and it comes across very strange. And you even risk, of course, miscommunicating. So this is the reason why you want to avoid this practice. So what do you do when you encounter a new word? You obviously understand the meaning of it. You take into account the context. When is it normally used? So backbreaking is used when it's a difficult physical exercise. And then sometimes you have collocations. The collocations, words that normally associate with that particular word. So you have to consider all three: meaning, context, and sometimes collocations. All right, if you have any questions, please write them at the bottom of the screen. There's a question button. I will answer them at the end. All right, let's move on to the second sort of habit or practice you want, that's not a habit, but practice you want to avoid. Don't be one-dimensional learner and a one-dimensional English learner. So let's take a look at what I mean by that. If you look at the many ways in which you can encounter English, experience English, use English, we have a lot. Generally, there are four big categories: speaking, writing, reading, listening. These are the way we sort of engage in some form of communication in English. But within that, these categories, you have lots of different areas that you might really enjoy or might not really enjoy. Informal chatting, chatting with friends. Formal speaking, like presentations or debates. Writing poetry or a diary or essays. Writing emails or chatting. Reading light stuff, romance, or some sort of maybe a Harry Potter or something like this, fiction, or more serious literature if you're an academic or a researcher. And finally, listening. You might like to listen to psychology videos or TED Talks on YouTube. And so the point is that you have lots of different options. And here's what I normally observe amongst learners. They have a proclivity to learn just one thing, one aspect. Oh, 1 second here. So here's the issue. We are attracted to things that we're good at. So if you go back to that list that I've just looked at and talked about, you might be good at, reading, Harry Potter. You might be really good at listening to psychological videos because you do it a lot because you like it. You might be great at the little chit chat. You can say hello and order food. So you might be good at these things, but you don't want to confine yourself to just these areas. You want to move beyond them and experience English in as many different areas as possible. This is how you improve. So you want to touch as many of these areas, experience as many of these areas as possible, even if you're not very good, because this is how you grow faster. You expose yourself to areas of the language you're not used to, and whenever you do this and you take an honest effort to learn, you almost inevitably grow faster. So, results, if you're only doing 1 or 2 dimensional learning of English, in other words, if you only do the things you're good at or that you like to do, here's what happens. You have a low ceiling or potential on your language. Number 2, your fears and feelings of inadequacies in the other areas grow higher. The longer you avoid them. So you have this greater anxiety about maybe giving a speech or writing a paper because you've avoided it for so long. The longer you avoid it, the greater the fear is. And then finally, you lose insights gained from other aspects of English. I have benefited a lot from this. I use a lot of what I learn when I write in my teaching. So I've benefited, or when I give presentations, I transfer those skills or the knowledge I gain from those experiences into my teaching. So you gain insights. The more experiences you have, it will make you a more sensitive learner and a better teacher. So don't avoid opportunities just because you're not good at it. This is the reason to experience it, to give it a try. All right, number 3. The third practice that we have to avoid if we want to grow fast in English, learn quickly, is don't wait until you're completely ready to try something new. Now, this is a little bit related to the previous slide, but not really, previous point. The hint or the clue is you'll never feel completely ready. And I have the example of Instagram. This was a new experience for me. Going live like this is a new experience. And I felt inadequate. But guess what? I never feel completely ready. You never feel perfectly ready. But if you want to grow fast, you have to experience new aspects of language, new aspects of communication. And that's what I'm doing when we present on Instagram Live. So let me give you a bit more detail on that. Preparation is important, and I have an asterisk. That's called an asterisk after important. And asterisk is at the bottom. I explained you don't obviously want to do things that can impair or hurt your reputation long term. So I'm not suggesting you go headlong into opportunities you're not prepared for, completely not prepared for. Don't do it. You can lose your reputation, and it's hard to gain it back once you lose it. But what I am suggesting is that you should start taking advantage of opportunities that cross your path. Why? Because you grow faster. So here are some of the opportunities I would suggest you try to get involved in after this live today. I want to challenge you all, every listener here, to do one thing new in the next week or the next month. Try one thing new in English that you've never done, a new experience, and see how you feel. Oftentimes, you will feel exhilarated because you're growing a lot faster than what you would normally. So what opportunities am I talking about? I'm talking about writing a poem. That's really random. Some of you don't like poetry. Try writing a poem. You will appreciate English from a completely different perspective. Make a presentation like this. Well, that's the next point. Go live. But make a presentation live. There's an international organization called Toastmasters where you can present in front of colleagues and you get beneficial feedback on your presentation skills. Make a video for TikTok or Instagram. Go live. Create a group chat on one of my posts or find a speaking partner. Begin teaching. If you want to learn English quickly, begin teaching it. There's no faster way to learn English than to begin teaching it. Join a book club where every week you read a new book, or every month you read a new book and you talk about the book. Do something new. This will grow your English. This will help your English improve very, very quickly. Much faster than if you do the same things every day, every month. If you change your routine, try new things, this is when you grow the fastest. Act on your interests or your curiosities. I remember in university, I decided to study English literature. I was curious about it, but I wasn't sure I was good at it. But I took a chance and I learned a lot about English and literature and language as a result. So even if you don't feel you're good at it, if you're curious about it, try it. It will help you improve. It will give you a different perspective on the language, and I think you'll be better for it. All right, now we're going to point 4 now, which is don't study English when you feel like it or have time. Now that might seem counterintuitive. Don't study English when you feel like it or have time. Let me tell you what I mean by this. Don't leave yet. Let me explain, please. Now, this is a good strategy when you A, feel good, and B, have a lot of time. But what happens in life? We all know it. We feel down. We feel depressed. We don't want to study. We get very busy. So this is a poor strategy most of the time because our mood changes. We feel low. There's an English term, we're blue. We're a bit down. We're a bit sad. So our mood changes and our schedule fills up. We become busy. And so this is not a good strategy to study when you feel like it and when you have time, because this will never, this will never work long term. So what's the strategy I'm suggesting? The strategy I suggest is to schedule English, your study of English, like you do your job or your school or your university. This is why having a private teacher is so often so very helpful, because you meet them twice a week at this time and you have to do something. But what I recommend is that you schedule regular times to study English. It shouldn't depend on how you feel or if you have time. It's in the schedule. You make time for what's important. Your job's important. For most of us, school or university is important. And you have to determine, I don't know, but you have to determine, is English as important? For many of us, English is very important. So we should schedule it, put it in the schedule, and then we do it regardless of how we feel. This is how we improve fast. Now, I have one more slide, a point I want to make. If it's not in the calendar, whatever it is, if it's not in the calendar here or on your phone or on paper, it doesn't get done consistently over a long period. It doesn't get done. Inconsistency kills progress. This is the most important point of the live. If you want to grow quickly, you have to be consistent. Everything else I talked about earlier is important, but this is critical. You will not grow, you will not improve consistently in English or great fast improvement if you're not consistent. I can guarantee that. All right, I'll get to your questions in just a moment. I want to just end with a review. So what have we talked about? We've talked about learning words in context and with common associations. Very critical. Otherwise, you use words out of context, and it's better perhaps not to know the word than to use it in a wrong way. Number 2, use English in a variety of settings, not just your favorite ones. Be vulnerable, have new experiences, which leads us to number 3, create new opportunities to use your English. Offer to do a presentation. Offer to start a book club or a group chat. Everything is under your control. You have control of how quickly you move. These experiences and opportunities propel's a good word, Propel, propel your English forward, moves it forward faster than it normally would. And finally, and most critically, take English seriously and put it in your schedule if English is indeed serious for your future, critical for your future. If it's not so important, if it's a holiday English you're interested in, then you don't probably need to put it in your calendar. But if it's a career, an international job, then you probably need to put it in your calendar and be consistent. All right.